Hey everybody, Tim Higgins here. This is part two of what we talked about. Technically, it's yesterday for me, but on the other video, we talked about what an MCP is. I'm not really going to recap too much. This is not really to teach you MCP. It's just more of a coding concept, but I want to show you how cool and easy it is. So we're going to start with just doing this. Oh, and I was reading something not too long ago, but you got to be careful because if you connect too many MCPs, people are having problems with Claude. Even though if they pay 200 for the max edition, they still run out of tokens. And a lot of it is because they're using too many MCPs, right? You got to worry about that contents that you're sending. So let's talk about, so I'm trying to prep this one as much as I could. We're going to start with our Claude. Let me go ahead and exit the Claude because that's what we did last time. And in my Claude desktop configure, I want to make sure it's empty, and it is, so there's no MCPs in there. So we're going to go ahead and minimize that. We're going to create a new one here, and I am going to start with the scratch, but then we're going to do a lot of copying over because we're going to do a whole CRUD functionality and just using an MCP. You'll see what I'm saying. So let's open up a terminal. Let's get it larger, and we'll do the same thing. We'll go from a terminal to an IDE, just because to me the IDE programming is easier because you see, it gives you the IntelliSense and all that. But you don't have to. If you're really old school gung ho, then you can just type the whole thing in Notepad. Who cares at that point, right? At that point, it's just code. So let's zoom in. I think it's this plus button. There we go. Yes, it is. I don't zoom in my terminal too often. So hopefully you all can see that. All right, so we'll start for where are we? We are in my root. So let's go to my desktop. And in my desktop, I think I have a folder called demo. I created that this morning. So we'll start there. Apologize about that if you heard that. I'm trying to get this done before my morning meetings just because I started it and I want to finish it. Now, we talked about using this UV. I am going to go ahead and use this little paradigm over here just so you can see kind of what we're doing in a way. I think, again, I'm hoping that you're watching this because you know Python and you're not using this to learn Python because that's two totally different things. But my main thing that I want to show you is how simple it is knowing Python and just taking your Python application itself and converting it to something like something for an MCP, right? For an example, a CRUD functionality. Hopefully, you're not allowing the MCP to create your database and all that, but we're going to, right? Just because of the nature of an MCP, but you may, if you're doing internal stuff, right? You may want to do that. Now, let's just start with, let me stop talking. So we're going to make a directory. Something is this, I recorded this video yesterday, but something happened to my mic. So I had to go back and redo it. What I want to do though is look here. So I am actually using the new Visual Studio Coder Insiders. I recommend using that if you're using Visual Studio Code, just mainly because it has, I think it has AI in it, which is kind of cool. And Visual Studio Code probably does too, but I'm not a Visual Studio Code guy. I'm going to take the name. That's what I was looking for. So what we're going to call this one is make directory. I want it pretty close to what we had yesterday, okay, just to keep it stupid simple. So we'll call this make directory MCP. We'll call it database demo, and then we'll cd into that. And then we want to make another directory. No, we're not. We're going to let the UV make that directory for us. Okay, so now what we're going to do is do UV initialize. And what I mean by make that directory is I can do demo, we'll call it 2-database. Okay, and that should be pretty close to what we had yesterday. Now, if you look here, what did that do for us? That created one folder. If I go into that folder, let's go ahead and do some real estate. I look here. We can see that it sets up a main. We talked about this, right? And it sets up this this file. If you've ever done Java in the past, it's kind of like that file. It just has its dependencies and things like that. So if you know anything about Python, you probably did a lot of pip install and things like that. And then, and set up your environment with venv. You don't have to do that. This UV does all that for you. So let's go ahead and do that real quick, and then I'll go show you what we have. So UV, VMV, okay. And that even told us what we need right here, which is good because I used to stumble around through that quite a lot. And what that does, oops, I put too much in there, I'm sorry. let's what this will do, this will actually put us in that environment. If you know how that works, the reason that is like that is because now any dependencies I install are in this pseudo virtual environment type situation. That's not really what it is, but it keeps me from installing all these dependencies on my local machine. Okay. So there's two ways, and a lot of customers get this confused. There's two ways when you install dependencies. There's those that are local and then those that are just project based. And we want this to stay in project based. Now, what did that give us? Now, the VMV is a hidden directory. So let's go in here and look. So this is everything it's given us so far. It's even given us a Git. Let's go ahead and look at this file. I talked about this in the last video, but I just want to look real quick. Name, I can give it a description. What is the README file, which is kind of cool, especially if you're using GitHub. It requires one sometimes. My Python version. So let's do, just in case you jump directly to this one, which I don't recommend. But if I go look at my version here, I'm using 3.10. Now I have all the way to the latest, but I have different versions because I write different Python for different people. So I try to match the customers. And then if I do version, again, if you don't know how to install this, it's very simple. And I think they talk about it here. And on this website, we are, I don't know why that's there. This is, if you look for the MCP.io, that is their website. And on there, it actually has pretty good instructions, but they kind of bounce around a lot. And then if you go into the SDKs, if you notice, they have SDK for almost any language, right? So any common language, like I don't see C++ or anything like that, but unfortunately I do have Go, Swift, C#, right? So Rust, if you're new to that. So they do have these SDKs. We're sticking with Pythons because we're adults. And then what we're going to do is go in here. And what was the last thing we did? Oh, we're in our environment. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this, and I'm just going to copy this right here. It's kind of cool that that's there. Because these are our requirements. We're going to add MCP. The CLI is what gives us the fast, I think it's what gives us the fast MCP. But either way, I've been using it. Be honest with you, I don't really care why it's there. I think there's other packages that you could include. I'm 100% sure they are. But anyway, just go with it, right? If you're a diehard and you have to know, just look it up. Everything's on Google, right? Or everything's on AI now. So now we have our project. Everything's good. We're going to go now open it up in our IDE so we have more control. So I'm going to say open, not new, open. Let's go to my desktop. Let's go to demo. Let's go to the root of this, which is where my main file is, and open. Okay, and of course I trust it. I just built it. Now the cool thing about this is while it's the IDE crashes here, it's one of those things I just don't really care about, but it knows the Python. It's set all that up already. And the cool thing is I am already in my environment. I don't have to do that. I don't have to go in Python, or sorry, I don't have to go in here, PyCharm, which is what I use all the time. If you've seen any of my other videos, I don't have to go in here and reset things up. Just running this UV does it for me. Now, don't get confused. UV really is just a package management, kind of like pip, but it does, it's the latest and greatest, and it does more for you. So there you go. I should get my credits for promoting that. All right, so we're done with this. So we're going to close that. Now, I cheated because I don't want this to be a 4-hour video. Let's go to our Visual Studio, and I actually copied some of this over here. But let's get started. First thing we want to do is get rid of this main or rename it. Just because the default, or not the default, but the best practice for MCP on this one is server. It's not really a best practice for an MCP. It's just all the documentations and everything you see says that. For an example, even here, see it says touch, which means create the file. Well, shoot, I just lied. They made a sucker out of me. But a lot of times when you see this, it will say server here. So we're just going to stick with that. But you can control that easy. If I look over here, we're going to talk about it. But when I get over here into Claude, I tell it what file to actually execute. So that could be main, right, which is your default best practice if you're building an application. But in this case, we're sticking with this. Now, the README file is blank. I don't know why I almost opened that. So let's go in here. We're going to delete this. We're going to do this as fast as we can. Um, so what we want is a very basic CRUD function, but I'm only going to stick with two. So what I like to do is, and I don't like to start with my comments, but it kind of helps, is create a read and a add database uh, MCP. Okay, so it's only removing, delete, and update, but it's going to be the same concept, right? So you all get that. So the first thing we've got to do, of course, is at this point, you got to put your Python hat on because that's all you're doing here, right? It's just basic Python stuff. So what we need to do is we're going to import our SQLite. We're going to use a basic local SQLite database. That way, we don't have to worry about connecting to anything or any crap like that. All right, so the next one is going to be from pathlib because we're going to look at our local directory to get SQLite. So we're going to import path. Okay, and the next one, of course, is we need to bring in our MCP. So from mcp.server.fast MCP, we're going to import MCP. There we go. And I'm going to try not to use tooltips too much. I mean, I'll use tooltips, but the AI recommendations, because I want you to kind of see what we're doing. Now, the first thing we need to do is initialize. Oops, sorry. We need to, sorry, I've been working on COBOL files, and a comment on COBOL is a minus minus. So or at least the files I was working on. So when you bounce between languages, sometimes you forget what the comment is. Now, from here, what we're going to say is initialize fast MCP. Okay. So first thing we want to do is we want to initialize this. So we're going to call it MCP equals fast MCP. And we're actually going to give it a name. So we're going to call it Van Halen set list. So this is going to be a Van Halen set list. If you don't know what a set list is, when the band plays, that's what songs they play in what order. So we're going to build them a set list. Next thing I'm going to do is put a database. We're gonna, we'll keep it stupid simple. Database path. So let's go ahead and make it local. So we'll, best practice, use all caps for variables. So we'll make this pseudo variable, or so db path. There we go. That kind of gave me what I wanted. So if you don't know what this is, we're taking the local path parent, and we're going to call it set list instead of db. Okay, that part's kind of important later, but we'll get to it when we get to it. So the next thing we need to do is to create, or we'll call it, use proper terms, initialize the database. Now, the good news is I've already cheated on that, and you don't have to watch me do that. Where did I put it? Oh, I stuck it down here. No, I did not. Where did I put that file? Give me two. Oh, it's right here. Okay. So we're going to grab this. So I kind of built this out already, but this, I took out all the MCP stuff. This is just Python because we're going to add in the MCP stuff. Okay. Because again, I'm not here to teach you Python. I can, but that's not the purpose. So, I was just looking at it. So initialize database, we do our SQLite connection, it's connect to the path, it creates a cursor, we're going to create table if it doesn't exist, it's going to create it here in our local system, then we're going to commit it, which is kind of like your save, and then we're going to close it. Again, if you don't know that, then this is just database jargon, right? So what we want to do though is now call this. So let's get it side out of this. And we're going to initialize this on load. Okay, so we're going to need that, but oh, that was pretty smart. It actually put it in main, but that's a good way to do it, but we're not going to do it that way. I guess we could, but no, we're going to stick it there. Oh, not that, sorry. We just want this. So what that's going to do is that's, if you don't know, I hope you do, that is just going to kick this off, right? That's all it's doing. So that, again, we are not focused on MCPs at this point. This is going to cause an error for now, so we'll just put a pass. Okay. So the next step, what we want to do after that, so initialize the database. We need to create our, so now we just need to create, right? So when we think about a CRUD functionality, CRUD, hopefully you know, is create, uh, CRUD create, hold on. CRUD. So create, read, update, and delete. Okay, so next what we want to do is create. We kind of did that here, but we're going to create data. Okay, and again, I have that over here just because I'm not here to teach you Python. I have one for add song. And we're going to talk about these as we do them, so don't panic. The reason I do this because there's a lot of stuff. What is wrong with copy and paste today? There is a lot of stuff that you don't need to know about. Again, this is not MCP. I'm going to keep saying that because I'm going to try to get that in your head. This is not MCP. Make it a little bigger so you can read it. What it's saying is we're going to add a song and pass in these parameters, right? You don't want to see me type all this out, and it returns a string. It connects to our local database. That's why we did it up here. Okay, global variables are usually all caps. So execute, insert into set list, which is here, and it's going to insert this data, and we're going to pass in as parameters. Okay, pretty straightforward, right? And it's going to give us back a string instead of added it. Okay, so the next one we want to do is we want to read from database set. Okay. See, it's already like, oh, I know what you're doing, but we're just going to take the code I did already because we just call it list. Bad naming convention. I normally wouldn't call it list at that point. I would call it something like get. But let's put that over there. Now, again, I would probably name it get instead of list. Let's do this. Get function. And then this up here is insert function. Okay. Now coming down here, what this is doing is album all. Now I didn't get this from the internet. I wrote this, right? So if you have any questions or if you see any bugs, ask me. But it's pretty straightforward, right? So you do a SQL connection. We're hitting the SQLite low row. If you want to know about SQLite, just Google it. It's a very simple low-level database. I use it all the time. In fact, your phone probably still uses it today. But we're saying select all from set list. We're album like, and then we're passing in the parameter order by year and the parameter passing in song name. Okay, that comma is there for that. And then we're gonna put it in here and we're gonna return it. Okay, so if it's not found, it tells us it's not found. This could be a list, right? Because we're saying select all, so it's gonna be more than one. So we create a dictionary, stick it in that, and then, well, a list. And then we stick it in it, and then we loop through this right here. And then inside of our list, we just return it with a new line so it looks good and it's just a straight line. Okay. So if you don't know how, again, you don't know how this works, I apologize. Maybe I'll do a video on that if I don't already have one. Maybe that's a good idea for dealing with that later. But anyway, my point is I need you to just understand this is just Python. So the next thing we're going to do is not just Python. So what we want to do now is we want to, let me think, is there something I want to do at this point? Now we could do an update song, but do we really care? Probably not. What I need to do is see if this will run. But before I do that, I just want to talk just for a second. Keep in mind that, again, this is just a very basic demonstration of doing a read and a select, sorry, a read and an insert. You don't really need to build a massive application. Like, I know what I want to say, but it's kind of hard to get to it. Just focus on your Python application is what I'm trying to get to. Think about your Python application that you're trying to achieve. And then that can be your MCP. And that's kind of it. So at that point, we want to make this an MCP, and that's very simple. I talked about decorators. So if I do MCP dot tool, that just gives it a name, but I don't want to do that because that's not what that one is. That one's actually an add. What I want to do is what tools are available to my MCP. So I need that one, and I need this one down here, which is, sorry, this one up here. But we have add song. Where's our insert? Oh, here it is, our list. Now the decorators go right outside the methods. This is not the only decorator Python has. They have a lot. But I want these two to be my tools. Now, again, if you remember what the tools are, the tools allows the server or the AI agent that's looking at it to say, hey, what is available to me? And that's what that is. So I'm just thinking for a second. Make sure I have everything in place. The one thing I'm missing, we could put this, if you remember in the other video, we could put, oh, I'm sorry, that's not a tool. So, okay, that's a great example. This is not a tool. This is just a method, but it is used. This add song could be calling another method. In fact, 90% of the time it could. I mean, you probably would. What I was thinking is right here, notice this add Van Halen song set list. Luckily, I was not smart enough to take that out because we need that. That is not a comment. You need that for the tool to understand. That's going to be the description of the tool. Okay. All right. So I really think we're done. There's one more thing I want to add is I want to tell the AI what is actually like help it understand a little bit better. So this is where your reference comes in at. And that's the reason I didn't copy that last one yet is this right here. I want to tell the AI what the schema is that it's working with. Okay. So we're going to put that there. And the only thing I'm doing is this is the schema of our database. Now that is another type of MCP resource, but it's, well, I didn't mean to use the word resource, but it is a resource. Now, when I say that, look at all the things that you can do with this. So there's resource, there's run, obviously you put run in your main, or it could be anywhere. We can add a prompt. I talked about in the other video, add a resource. So these seems like, well, I'm going to say this loosely. You can do this on the fly, right? So you can do this dynamically, wink, wink. Get contents, right? Get a prompt, list prompts. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with this SDK. I recommend spending time with it and see what all you can do because I'm showing you a very basic demonstration. But right now, let's just keep this as normal. And the last thing we need to do is here is we need to say mcp.run. Oops, not resource. mcp.run. Right there it is. Okay, so a couple of gotchas that are very important. Number one, where'd my mouse go? There it is. Okay, so number one, these have to be asynchronism, okay, which is kind of best practice when you're using portal stuff anyway. But what I want to do is instead of doing that, yeah, that's fine. We can test it. Notice I don't have my database. Let's just run it, see if we have any bugs. We do. So, okay, so down here, my reference has to have my resource. So it needs to know what the resource is. So what we're going to say is set list. That's our database. Okay, that's the reason I said that name is important. And this is a schema. There we go. And a lot of that you can kind of Google, maybe. I've been doing this for a while. So let's go to here. Yeah, there we go. So these are types of resources. Maybe come in here and look, right? Because it will kind of help you see some ideas, what you're looking at, yada, yada, yada. And this is something important too. I might have said this on the last call. Your protocol, to make a true MCP, best way I've always done it, and I could be totally wrong, is you want to make sure it's JSON RPC. And in this case, it's version 2. Let's see. If not, what I've seen online is a lot of people would just do HTTP calls and call them MCPs, but that's not really an MCP. That's just an HTTP call. Data type. So, oh, here we go. So URL, name, title, description, mem type, size, annotations, common schemas. Okay, this is what I was looking for. So schemas, HTTPS, are you pointing to a browser? Are you pointing to a file? A Git for GitHub. And there's more. That's where I found somewhere in there, I found where I could use schema and say, you're going to use this schema, and the schema is my database set list. Okay. So that's it. Now let's see what happens. Go. Okay. No error. It's running. Uh, there's nothing really to see here. Come back later. Just kidding. But it did generate our database. Now our database is empty. That's a good thing to know. I'm going to stop it. This is just because I stopped it, right? Not a big deal. And I'm going to delete this. So we're going to move it to trash. Delete, 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 delete. So now what we're going to do is we're going to tie this into our Claude. Most importantly is when you add tools and take away tools, stop Claude. Just make sure it's not running, basically, when I say stop it. So what we have inside your Claude, this is a really tricky folder to find. Let's close that. One important is when you're doing this, when you're done, always do this, and it almost caught me again. Always make sure you run UV sync. That's just part of that UV. What that does is it makes sure that this is synced up with the dependencies that you're using. That's all. Okay. So we're going to minimize. Technically, we could just close that at this point because we're done with it. But what I want to talk about now is this little file. And I think I talked about on the other screen. So we can close this because we're done with it. I don't think it updated my README files. It'd be kind of cool if it did. But hey, use AI for that. So let's go ahead and just close that. Claude. So you want to get to your Claude, and it's kind of a hidden thing. So if you're on a Mac, you can do Control Command G. No, what is it? Control Shift G. No. Oh, sorry, I was picking that folder. Yeah. So it's Command Shift G, and that puts this up here inside of your Finder, and do the little bracket. Do this path right here, and that's the easiest way to find it. Okay. I'll put it up here so you can see it. And let's just make it large. There we go. That's where you want to go to modify your Claude if you're using Claude, right? If you're not using Claude, if you're using something different, by all means, look. Oh, I'll move too fast, but it's on the video. You can pause it. If you're using something like ChatGPT, or if you're using, Google or whatever, you just have to look to see where their settings are to add this file. Now, this file is very straightforward. It did not exist for me. I think I said that on the other video. But now we're going to use this. So if you're looking at this, don't worry about that. But if it doesn't exist, create it, and it has to be this name, Claude Desktop Configuration. Okay. Now I have it open over here. When you first create it, you can create, not that one. You can create it however you want to. But for me, I like to have a blank one to start with, and that's here. So if I looked at it now, you probably won't see a difference because, yeah, it's this. And notice it's blank, okay? This is the one that's live. So what you want to do is add the information to your new MCP. And I'm going to talk to you about that for a few seconds. Again, I did on the other video, but the other video kind of flew through. I may even go back and redo the other video. But it's saying MCP servers. This is JSON, right? Van Halen, which is our name. And it's just the name, right? This can be any name. And then, but most importantly is it's got to point to the bin. This needs to know where the UV is. If you don't know where that is, just use which, if you're on a Mac. If not, you got to figure it out on the Windows. And that tells me. So just copy that into here. Okay. And then your arguments, it wants to know the directory to your MCP. Now, that's why it was important for me to try to get close to the same names, because that way I didn't have to worry too much about that. But let's just open in Finder, and we'll go a little bit deeper here. And let's just get the information, get info. And then I can copy the path directly off of this. Hopefully you know how to do all this. If you don't, then maybe I'm teaching you something new. And then what I like to do is put it here and just make sure things line up. So MCP database, so that's different. Well, actually, this is all different. So demo, okay, all this is different. So we need to add that right after desktop. So we're just going to paste this right here. Okay, and it wants to know which file. So this is saying use UV And remember, UV is a package manager, so it doesn't need to install any packages. And that's why it's imported for the MCP. And it's also in all these examples. So this is not the example. Here we go. So notice it's there. Now, I don't know if this talks about how to put it in Claude. To be honest with you, there's some really good stuff here. There's different types of tools you can use. One that I found interesting is you can do OAuth authentication, which is kind of cool because that's mandatory. Yeah, they do talk about Claude. Okay. Again, it's been a while since I've looked at that. Now, so we want to point to our file. So if I go to this, whoops, don't move it. If I actually go to this, this is what's imported. All right, we'll fail. Let's open up a new finder because I want to leave that there. I should say new finder. And let's do a Command Shift G. I'm going to paste that in there. And that should take us right to our project. And it should bring me right to this folder. Okay, this file. That's what's imported. If you miss that, it's gonna fail. And notice I put the name here. So again, if you named this main, if you named it database, if you named it Tim's videos too long, then just make sure it matches the name. That's it. That's all you got to do. It's that simple. All right. So what we're going to do is save this. And what I like to do is close it and reopen it just to make sure it did. Yep. Okay. So it's correct. Now, yep. Okay. I just had to read it. Just make sure it wasn't pointing to the original one we did yesterday. And then what I want to do now is restart this. Excuse me. And we'll say how many songs are in our set list. Now, most importantly, there should not be any. But the database is here and the database is empty. And this is how you know you're using your local MCP is it's asking you permission. So this is why I have this little thing right here, because now we're going to add one or two, right? We're done with coding. Now it's just showing how it works. The current cell list is empty. Okay, let's add one song to our set list. And that's the reason I copied it, because I don't want to get all this again. But in our set list, we have the name of the song, the band, which is always Van Halen. Oh no, the album, I'm sorry. And then the year, and then the tuning that Eddie used and which guitar. Now, Eddie usually used B flat, so not a big deal. Now done. Okay, now I'll say, show me the songs in the set list now. Okay, now the cool thing is if I go over here and close this and reopen it, or you can refresh it, now I see. So what happened was Claude actually created this database by kicking off our MCP. It's queried this database, and it's actually inserted this record. So let's go ahead. Allow. And I'm going to go ahead and insert these others. Now, they don't have to be this format. You could just do hard text. This is just a basic insert, right? So you want to add more? Yes, please. Let's add these songs. Okay. And it's really that cool and that simple. Now, this is going to go add them. So let's just give it a few seconds. I'm just letting it do its chime. And what I'm going to do, notice that you could actually just debug this if you want. Add in song. Notice it adds it as a JSON. So give it 2 hours, yada, yada, yada. If you don't me, that's kind of my joke. So 6 steps. Again, it's adding that song, da, 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 da. So ain't talking about love. So it's about right there. So it's got, what, 4 more to go. Okay. And I hope this video, because I've had sleep and I'm drinking coffee and it's early in the morning and things are kind of falling in place better. So if nothing else, hopefully this video makes more sense than the one you saw yesterday. I'm going to have to go clean up the one yesterday. This one I don't have to clean up so much. Done. All 9 songs are added. So what I want to do is go over here and just say, hey, are you telling me the truth? And yes, you are. So that's the insert. Now I'm just going to close. Well, I'll leave it running. So one thing I didn't notice is Claude actually runs the project. So that's kind of interesting, but we told it to, right? We told UV to run, which is kind of weird to me sometimes, but it is what it is. So done all songs. Okay, now let's ask you a harder question. Well, first let's say, show me the set list now. Okay, and give it 2 hours. Da, 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 da. That's always my go-to, 2 hours, right? So da, 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 da. We're gonna say always allow because I'm tired of telling it. While this is churning, it won't take but a second. If you remember, the MCP is a model content protocol. It makes more sense if I reverse it. That's my mind. It's how my mind works. By the way, that gave us our song list, 10 songs, and it even separated by fair warning and which guitars he used. And that's pretty close because by this time, he migrated from the classic Frankenstrat up to the Kramer 5150. But let's be honest, he probably did most of them. Which songs, let's actually do a query. Which songs did Eddie use standard tuning on? Now, keep in mind, this is not a fact. This is, and I misspelled it, but it's okay. In fact, that's a good thing that you misspelled it because AI is going to say, hey, dummy, this is how you do this. And notice that I said Eddie and he even said Eddie Van Halen. So there we go. So that's it. So it kind of, it's not 100% true. All these are actually in E flat, but that's what I told the database to do. So that's kind of important to know too, is it's only going to know from what's this database. It didn't go off on the internet and say, oh, all these are E flat tuning. No, it said what I told it. So that's proof that it's using my data, good or bad. And if you know me, I'm a database guy. So I'm all about the data. Your MCP is only going to be as good as the data. But let's close all this because we're done. The one thing I want to do, let's go ahead and close this project, close this. And I'm just kind of curious since I closed the project, which album, I don't think I told it albums, which album was Unchained, one of my favorite songs besides Main Street, on. Okay. Now, this is kind of interesting because we didn't tell it that information, right? Did I already close that file? Fair warning. Where did you get that information? So the one we did yesterday, we used iTunes. Today, we gave it a database. So, oh, I did. I'm so sorry. But let's ask it another question. Who was the singer on Fair Warning album? That we did not put in our database. So again, if you think about it, use this website to guide you, use the SDKs to guide you. But my whole point to this is the MCP is not complicated. It is good at, so there you go. And that is correct. Where did you get that information? Okay. So think about it, protocol, rules, HTTP, FTP, in this case, it's JSON, RCP, contents, right? So just your code, right? And then your models, your AI. So we split up by tools, and I showed you these 3 tools. They can be more, right? And they can be more in depth. So your tools is what you're making public to the AI. Your resources is giving it more information. And then your prompts are prompts, right? I showed that yesterday. Let's see. And another good example about using the MCP is when you have an agent, a lot of times it just goes to the model. See, that's from my general knowledge about Van Halen, not from the set list MCP. So, how many songs are in the set list? Just make sure it can still see the set list. So, yeah, so I talked about this yesterday. So what's the other video? It's pretty straightforward. You add an MCP to give it, way I look at it is I'm giving the AI knowledge about something within my domain, right? So 10 songs. Like maybe you have a company database, maybe you have company APIs, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to do one last thing. We always make sure you clean up. So let's go ahead and quit. And the cleanup is easy. You open up this config file again, and you just get rid of all your servers. I think you can just get rid of that file, but I wouldn't personally. I don't think it matters because I created it. That's why I said that. But now that it knows it's there, who knows? Claude's kind of weird sometimes. Okay. There we go. Do you see our set list MCP? I should say no. And if that's it, I hope this was helpful. I hope this was useful. I try to keep it as short as possible. Again, I'm going to hammer this as much as I possibly can. Um, is Sorry, I was reading. Yeah, Tim, I see it from the previous. We got it working. What's up with it? So, okay, so it's not working. So that's good. That's what I need to know. So, and the funny thing is, it does see all this information, which it shouldn't, but that's okay. Yeah, who knows? Anyway, Claude is a special beast, right? So, with saying that, I hope this was useful. I said that before. I hope you got the concept of focus on your code, get your code working, get your code right. I'm going to delete this demo just because it has no purpose in my life. But if you do have any questions, just reach out to me and hopefully I can help.